Hi, I'm Skyla. On my birthday, my sister-in-law splashed red wine across my mother's face, then cooed, "Oops, how clumsy of me." They called it an accident. I saw the smirk, and the years of quiet cruelty behind one glass. They thought it ended with a stain. They never imagined my reply. Before we start, have you ever been humiliated by family and kept silent? Tell me below. I read every word. Now watch what happens when silence decides to speak. The older I get, the quieter my birthdays become. I bake the lemon pound cake myself, same recipe every year, the one Granddad liked, because I don't trust anyone else to remember the extra zest. By 5 o'clock, I've set the table, polished the mismatched silver, fluffed the cushions. I play hostess, referee, and emotional shock absorber all at once. That's the job of the youngest, I guess. Keep everyone talking so they don't notice they stopped listening years ago. Craig's Lexus crunches onto the driveway first. Carol slides out in designer heels, balancing a bottle of Cabernet like she's presenting an Oscar. No, happy birthday, Skyla. Just a cool nod as she sails past me into the kitchen. Paula follows, already scrolling her phone. Mom steps carefully, clutching a small gift bag as if it might break. Behind her, Ethan jogs up and wraps his arms around my waist. He's 10, narrow-shouldered, anxious in crowds. I smooth his hair and breathe in the safety of apple shampoo. Inside, the air smells of rosemary from the roast and whatever fragrance Carol's pushing this month. She sets the wine on the counter with a crisp pop. "Thought you'd want something decent," she says. "Your grocery cakes are sweet enough." The words land softly, but I feel them bruise. I turn away, slide Mom's coat onto the rack, whisper thanks for coming. Guests fan through the living room, grazing on crackers. Carol lifts the foil on my cake and laughs. "Store-bought frosting? Bold choice." Craig chuckles because that's easier than defending me. Paula wanders by and murmurs, "Still living in that starter house, huh? Thought you'd have traded up by now." I answer with a practiced smile and excuse myself to refill the punch bowl, anything to reset the sting. Ethan hovers beside me. "You okay, Mom?" I nod. He knows better than to believe me. We gather near 6 for the toast. The sun has dropped below the shutters, leaving the dining room dressed in amber. I stand behind my chair as Craig taps a fork against a glass. Before he can speak, Mom raises her hand. "I just want to say," she starts, voice shaking like a porch swing, "Skyla has always—" She never finishes. Carol pivots, ankle twisting just enough, and the Cabernet sails in a dark arc. It splashes across Mom's chest, crimson blooming through pastel linen, beads of red sliding down her cheek. Gasps suck the oxygen from the air. Mom lifts trembling fingers to her face, astonished, embarrassed, trying to pretend she's not dripping. Carol doesn't apologize. She presses a manicured palm to her mouth and laughs softly. "Oops, how clumsy of me." Paula snorts. Craig stares at his shoes. Someone coughs. No one moves. The room smells suddenly metallic, sweet, wrong. I reach for napkins, but Carol is faster. She thrusts one at me, not Mom, like I'm staff. "Here, dear, you wipe her down." The second blow lands harder than the wine. My ears ring, but I steady myself, dabbing at Mom's collar. She whispers, "Leave it, baby. It's just an accident." Yet her eyes beg for something I've never given. Open defiance. I escort her to the half bath, blot the stain, breathe through the tightness in my chest. When she insists she's fine, I fold the ruined napkin, disgusted by the maroon smear, and slide it into my purse. Back in the kitchen, I flick on the faucet, but instead of water, I find a whisper of resolve. I pull out my phone, dial Marla at the gallery. "It's time," I tell her. My voice surprises me, steady, deliberate. Ethan watches from the doorway, worry creasing his brow. I give him a smile that isn't a smile and send him back to the table. I return moments later. Conversation has resumed in that brittle way people speak when they want to bury discomfort under small talk. Mom sits ramrod straight, eyes on her plate. Carol twirls the stem of her empty glass, a victor waiting for surrender. I take my seat, fold my hands, and look directly at her. "Thank you for that," I say. Silence flutters like a broken wing. Craig frowns. Paula's brows knit. Carol tilts her head, searching for sarcasm. She finds only calm. The kind of calm a gale gets right before it tears a roof off. That declaration, my private vow not to play nice again, was still echoing in my head when the last dish was washed and the porch light went dark. Ethan trailed behind me in sock feet as I moved through the quiet house, gathering the day's wreckage. Lipstick-smeared glasses, shredded ribbons, the single plate my brother bothered to rinse. I tucked him into bed, smoothing the quilt to his chin. "Mom, they were mean tonight," he whispered. I kissed his forehead. I noticed. "Get some sleep, champ. Tomorrow's ours." When his breathing settled, I closed his door, pivoted down the hall, and unlocked the desk drawer I hadn't opened in weeks. The manila envelope waited like a loaded trap, corner creased exactly where Mr. Braley's thumb had pressed it across his desk. 2 Fridays ago, I'd sat opposite the aging attorney, a rainstorm needling his office windows while he slid the packet toward me. "Your grandfather amended everything," he'd said, adjusting his glasses. "The lake house, the surrounding acreage, even the small dock business. He named you sole beneficiary." He paused, weighing my reaction. I only nodded. We both understood that news, mishandled, could detonate Thanksgiving dinner for the next decade. "My advice," he continued, "is patience. Let them reveal themselves first." They had. Tonight proved his caution prophetic. So now, in the glow of my desk lamp, I unfolded the deed, tracing Granddad's shaky yet unmistakable signature. I felt something inside realign. Not revenge exactly, but a righting of the scale I'd been tilting alone. "I'm done being the helper," I murmured, rolling the crisp edge beneath my fingertips. Thirst nudged me toward the kitchen. I was halfway to the sink when small feet patted in. Ethan, pajama pants crooked, clutched a glass. "Couldn't sleep." He caught sight of the papers still in my hand. "Are we okay?" I crouched, meeting his eyes. "Better than okay. Do you trust me?" He nodded, curls bobbing. I hugged him tight. "Then know this. Things are about to change, and you and I are going to be just fine." He exhaled relief I hadn't realized he'd been holding, then trudged back down the hall. Alone again, I returned to the envelope and slid out one more document, an instruction letter Braley drafted at my request. Tomorrow morning, a courier would deliver certified copies of the new deed to every immediate relative, no announcement, no fanfare, just official proof that the property they'd all whispered about was no longer ours, but firmly mine. I pictured Carol opening the envelope, manicure freezing mid-slice, Craig scanning for loopholes, Mom blinking, unsure whether to scold or congratulate. "Happy birthday to me," I said into the empty room. Memory tugged. The law office's warm leather scent, Braley's pen tapping as he scheduled the delivery for the day after festivities, gives you one quiet night. He'd smiled without mirth. "Families can turn faster than weather. Keep your umbrella handy." I'd laughed then. Now I understood he wasn't joking. Phone in hand, I drafted a single text to Marla. Gallery assistant, confidant, unofficial fixer. One word: proceed. I watched the message send, then immediately deleted the thread, just in case. The clock on the stove blinked 11:58 when I climbed the stairs, exhaustion pooling behind my eyes. I killed the lamp, sank into the mattress, then headlights swept across my bedroom ceiling, lingering longer than any passing car should. I slipped from bed, heart steady, and parted the curtain. A sedan idled at the curb, engine humming low. The driver's door opened, and a silhouette stepped into the street lamp glow. Broad shoulders, familiar posture I hadn't seen in years. My breath caught, not in fear but in disbelief. Why would he show up now? Uncle Russ stood beneath the porch light, broad as ever but shrunken somehow, like time had borrowed inches from his height. Rain misted the brim of his ball cap. "Morning sky," he muttered, voice sandpapered by unlit cigarettes. I pulled my robe tighter, stepped aside. We hadn't shared oxygen since Dad's funeral 15 years ago, yet here he was before sunrise, carrying nothing but the urgency in his eyes. Inside, he remained standing, palms cupped around a mug he never sipped. "I won't stay," he said, glancing toward the hallway where Ethan slept. "Just came to hand you this before they blindside you." From his jacket pocket emerged a silver USB drive. "Your sister emailed a forged statement to probate last night, claims you tricked your granddad while he was on pain meds." My pulse quickened, though my face stayed neutral. "They're moving to void the new deed?" He nodded. "Saw the draft myself. Lacey wrote that you cornered the old man, forced him to sign. Same story your mama's been peddling for years. Poor Skyla can't make it on her own, always taking handouts. Gero." I swallowed the sting, slid the drive into my laptop. "I thought we'd at least reach coffee hour before someone knifed me." Russ snorted. "They never forgave how much he trusted you. Trust is a currency in this family. They hate that you've got more of it than cash." While the files copied, a memory surfaced unbidden. 9-year-old me tiptoeing to the parlor after bedtime, fingers exploring the piano keys just loud enough to feel alive. Mom startled me, yanked the lid shut. "Don't assume you're special because your granddad indulges you," she hissed. Later that week, Lacey cornered me in the hallway, brandishing a grainy photo of a hospital wristband, my name scratched through. "You're adopted anyway," she taunted. I ran to Granddad, who simply clasped my hands and whispered, "People rewrite stories when the truth scares them." Back in the present, the USB finished loading. Dozens of PDFs opened, draft affidavits, deposition outlines, even a phony psych report claiming Granddad had dementia months before his stroke. Each document carried Lacey's metadata. "They're thorough," I said, biting down anger. Russ exhaled. "Too thorough. Someone's bankrolling those lawyers. My guess? Craig's bonus, and whatever Carol's hiding in her boutique books." I thanked him, promised updates. Before leaving, he lifted a weathered brow. "Your granddad loved you, kid. Don't let them bleach that out of the record." The door clicked behind him. Dawn bled through the blinds as I rummaged for a battered lockbox Granddad once kept in his workshop. Inside, scanned years ago and forgotten, waited 2 items I hadn't revisited. A letter dated 6 months before his collapse, addressed simply to whoever believes Skyla, and a Polaroid of newborn me in his arms, hospital corridor blurred behind us. Mom wasn't in the frame. My throat tightened. The photograph felt warmer than my own skin. I opened the letter. Granddad's looping script spilled across the page. "If disputes arise, remember I changed my estate while clear-minded and joyful. Skyla earned every acre by standing beside me when storms came." Below, in smaller ink, "Tell her the piano kept my heart beating." I pressed the page to my chest a moment, then scanned it into a cloud folder marked Sunrise, just in case. Resolve sharpened. I drafted an email to Attorney Cartwright. Opposing party expected to file fraudulent claim, initiate motion for sanctions, and prepare evidentiary packet with attached scans. I hit send, then dialed Marla. She answered on the second ring, voice thick with sleep. "Plan B," I said. "Drop the recording. Private link only to family addresses." A yawn, then a low chuckle. "Uploading now. They'll choke on their cereal." Moments later, her text pinged. "They won't see it coming. Upload complete." The house fell silent except for the laptop fan. I typed one more message to Russ. "Thank you, doors always open," then watched the progress bar of encrypted delivery pulse green. When the confirmation flashed, all recipients opened. I leaned back, exhaled through my teeth. "You wanted a war," I whispered to the empty room. "And you forgot I've been training for one my entire life." What they didn't expect was the voice on that recording, and I got to watch the shock bloom in real time. My monitor displayed a neat list of green check marks, each one lighting up as a relative opened the private link Marla sent. First Lacey in Houston, then Mom at her condo, finally Aunt Marianne on her tablet, probably still in curlers. I refreshed once more. All eyes had heard Granddad speak beyond the grave. The file began with a cough, then his soft baritone, Thinner than I remembered, yet unmistakable. "If anyone challenges Skyla's right to the house, the trust, or my legacy," he said, "know that I chose her. She stayed when I couldn't speak, couldn't walk. She is my daughter in every way that matters." A chair creaked in the background, followed by a deep breath. "And if Lacey tries to rewrite the truth, remind her who raised her while her mother was in rehab." He stopped, maybe catching me flinch behind the camera, then added gently, "Record's over, kiddo." Hearing it again turned my spine to steel. I had almost forgotten that last dig at Mom's stint in recovery. Hearing it now felt like a seatbelt snapping into place. He'd known exactly which lies would surface. A notification pinged. Family group chat. I clicked. The feed scrolled so fast it blurred. Lacey. Total manipulation. He wasn't lucid. Mom. Why would he tape that? Skyla must be desperate. Aunt Marianne. Broadcasting private moments makes you look petty. I leaned closer, smiling at the fury bubbling through their keyboards. Under the desk, my foot tapped, not from nerves but anticipation. "I haven't even started," I whispered. The memory of that night flooded in, Granddad propped in his recliner, oxygen hiss steady, lamp casting golden light on dust motes. He'd asked me to set the recorder on the side table. "People forget facts, not voices," he murmured. "When the storm hits, you'll need thunder." I objected, said it felt morbid. He chuckled, coughed, and gripped my hand. "They'll turn on you the minute I can't speak. Promise me you'll keep playing, no matter how loud they boo." That last line had haunted me for years. Tonight it marched beside me like an anthem. Back at my desk, I attached the audio file to an encrypted email addressed to Cartwright and Langston. Subject line, time-stamped statement, notarized. A second copy went to Melanie Ortiz, investigative producer at Channel 5, flagged, "Hold unless litigation escalates." Insurance, the grown-up version of a security blanket. Before hitting send, I dialed our family lawyer. Langston answered in his gravelly pre-coffee rasp. "They'll file fraud by lunch," I said. "Counter with the recording. Also verify the county clerk logged the deed last week." Keys clacked on his end. "Understood. We'll put them on the defensive." I ended the call to find another ping. Aunt Marianne again. "Skyla, take that video down before you embarrass everyone." I typed 3 words, then deleted them. Let silence do the heavy lifting. Deep breath. Another memory pressed forward, one I'd locked away. Mom standing outside my bedroom when I was 18, talking to a friend on speaker. "She thinks she's better because Dad dotes on her. Wait till he's gone, she won't know how to breathe." I'd cried into my pillow that night, but I never argued. By dawn, I'd decided proving her wrong would taste better than crying. I shook it off and thumbed a quick text to Marla. "Nice work." She replied with a gif of popcorn exploding from a bowl, modern shorthand for, "Let the drama play." My phone vibrated with a voicemail alert. Lacey. I let it roll to the end, then pressed play on speaker. Her tone dripped disdain. "You think this changes everything? Fine. You want public? Let's go public. You'll regret stirring this up." I replayed it, chuckled softly. "That's exactly what I hoped you'd say." Outside, the sun inched above the oak line, throwing stripes across my office floor. The war she promised had already begun, and Granddad had armed me long before the first shot. 2 nights after the email firestorm, I zipped up a black column dress and studied my reflection. Calm eyes, level shoulders, armor that didn't clang. The downtown Botanical Museum glittered across town, hosting the annual Heritage Gala my grandfather used to underwrite. I had RSVP'd weeks ago as a donor, knowing full well the family would show too, scented with entitlement and ready for a spectacle. The valet line glowed beneath pendant lights. I stepped out of the car into a hush of early summer heat, offered a polite nod to photographers, and drifted toward the glass entry. Inside, white orchids draped from ceiling trellises, and a jazz trio filled the atrium with velvet notes. Guests in jewel tones mingled under banners announcing a restoration fund, one I planned to top up in Granddad's honor. Stiff smiles trailed me. Near the silent auction table, I spotted the cluster. Mom clutching a sequined clutch, Aunt Marianne mid-gossip, and Lacey in crimson satin, posture sharp as cut glass. They pivoted in unison when I approached the bar. Moments later, a reporter from the Tribune materialized, recorder in hand. My sister must have tipped him off. His first question reeked of rehearsed outrage. "Comment on allegations you isolated your grandfather to seize his estate?" I gave him the gentlest shrug. "Enjoy the program, sir. The orchids are spectacular." Then I slipped toward the tropical room, heart steady, heels silent on polished stone. The confrontation arrived by the koi fountain framed in hibiscus. Lacey strode up, voice pitched for maximum reach. "How does it feel stealing from your own blood? He wasn't even lucid." Conversations stalled. Cameras rose like mechanical birds. I felt every lens circle me. I didn't blink. Instead, I tapped my phone, volume up, and held it chest high. Granddad's recorded words spilled into the stillness. "If anyone questions her, they never knew me." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone's champagne glass chimed against tile. Lacey's mouth snapped shut. I let the final syllable hang, then lowered the phone. A clear voice cut through the murmurs. "That recording is genuine." Dr. Carly Winslow, Granddad's hospice nurse, stepped forward in navy lace. I witnessed him make it, and he was perfectly clear. Reporters pivoted as though guided by remote. Flashbulbs burst. Lacey stammered, glancing at Mom, who suddenly seemed fascinated by her shoes. I turned to Carly, gratitude softening my tone. "Thank you for guarding his dignity." She gave a small nod, eyes kind. While the press recalibrated their storyline, I walked to a board member stationed near a digital donor screen. "Is the restoration pledge still short?" I asked. His relief was immediate. 25,000 will close the gap." I signed without hesitation. Seconds later, my name rolled across a projected wall in gold. Donor of Honor, Skyla Hastings. Applause bubbled. Microphones swung back to me. I used the attention to redirect. "My grandfather believed beauty should outlive any of us. Tonight we honor that, not rumor." The statement landed like cool water, steady and unarguable. Outside on the terrace, moonlight silvered the conservatory glass. I stepped out for air and caught Lacey pacing near the herb garden, phone to her ear. "She played me," she hissed. "Move the next part up. Tell Mom it's time." I lingered behind a potted fig, recording every word. When she spun around, I offered a serene smile. "Lovely evening, isn't it?" She blanched, ended the call, and brushed past me with a scent of rage and jasmine. I tucked the new audio clip into a secure folder, pulse calm. The night had been theirs to script. Instead, they handed me the pen. I didn't know they'd break into my house that night, but looking back, the clues were scattered like breadcrumbs. After the gala, I drove home on muscle memory, slid off my heels in the foyer, and brewed chamomile to quiet the leftover adrenaline. Pride warmed me, yet so did a raw loneliness I hadn't felt since Granddad's funeral. By midnight, dishes were rinsed, security system armed, and the house settled into a hush too fragile for victory laps. Sleep found me only to shove me awake at 2:14 a.m. The crash came from downstairs, glass fracturing, then a heavy thud against hardwood. Heart sprinting, I rolled off the mattress and pressed the panic button Granddad installed behind my dresser. A silent alarm pinged the county sheriff. Barefoot, I eased into the hall closet, cracked the door, and listened. Male voices murmured, "Closet's down here." Another answered, "Hurry." Then Lacey, unmistakable even in a whisper. She said the safe's in her bedroom, grab the cedar box. My pulse steadied in a way that surprised me. Anger does that. Slows the film while the scene keeps playing. I slid my phone from the robe pocket, started recording, and waited. Red-blue strobes washed the windows 5 minutes later. The front door slammed, boots pounded, commands barked. I stayed hidden until an officer called my name. In the porch light, I saw the tableau, Lacey outside in a black hoodie that still carried a boutique price tag, tears streaking her mascara. 2 men, Cousin Jeffrey's boyfriend and a contractor I recognized from Craig's last remodel, were cuffed beside the shrubs. One officer guided them into a cruiser, another photographed the broken patio door. Lacey's defense spilled out instantly. I was worried about her, wanted to check in. They misunderstood. I spoke only to the deputy. My relative and these men entered without permission. Press charges for burglary and trespass. Lacey whimpered, "Skyla, please." I turned away, more exhausted than angry. At the station, the fluorescent lights felt harsher than her betrayal. I signed the complaint while Lacey attempted charm on a desk sergeant, claiming it was all a mix-up. When an officer asked if I wished to withdraw, I met his gaze. "If someone smashes a window twice, do you still call it clumsy?" He nodded, copied my statement, and added the audio from my phone plus the threatening voicemail from the terrace. Dawn painted the parking lot pink when they finally released me. Lacey remained in holding with her accomplices, her sobs drifting down the hallway as I left. Driving home, I rehearsed calm breaths, but every mile churned up fresh disbelief. Inside the quiet house, shards of safety glittered on the floor. I swept them later. First, I knelt by the cedar chest they'd tried to steal. The lock hung cracked but intact. I opened the lid and inhaled the faint cedar-lavender mix that always reminded me of Granddad's workshop. 2 leather-bound journals lay on top, beneath them a stack of cassettes and his pocket sketchbook, pages smudged by arthritic fingers. Tucked in the corner, wrapped in tissue, rested the tiny portrait of 8-year-old me grinning beside the river dock. Tears came then, not from fear, but from recognition. He'd foreseen this night, yet trusted I'd withstand it. I pressed the portrait to my chest and let the ache pass through instead of around me. When the shaking calmed, I replaced everything, added a new padlock, and carried the chest into the secret crawl space behind the linen closet. One last gift of foresight he'd shown me. The sun was climbing when I shuffled to the mailbox for fresh air. Bills, a gardening flyer, and one thick envelope stamped with courthouse insignia. My fingers trembled only slightly as I slid a nail under the flap. In court petition, emergency injunction, property dispute filed by Linda Hastings. Mom had moved her queen while her knight cooled in lockup. I closed the gate behind me and squared my shoulders against the morning heat. The courtroom door creaked open just as I adjusted my collar. I didn't blink. But when I saw who stepped inside and calmly took her seat beside my mother, my hand stiffened against the folder in front of me. Lacey, wrapped in a charcoal gray shawl, her wrist in a brace, and a gauze pad taped under one eye, clearly meant for show. She glanced my way, then looked down like she was the one being wronged. I said nothing. My attorney, Ms. Cartwright, leaned over slightly and whispered, "They're trying to paint her as the sympathetic party. Stay steady." I nodded. My palms stayed flat on the table, though the muscles in my arms twitched beneath the skin. Across the aisle, my mother sat stiff and proud, dressed in navy blue like she was at a church banquet, not a civil hearing against her own daughter. Her eyes scanned the room, but never landed on me. The judge, a short woman with firm eyes and a clipped voice, called the case forward. Hastings versus Hastings, motion for emergency injunction over disputed property, including disputed inheritance rights. Ms. Linda Hastings, you may proceed. My mother stood, cleared her throat like she was preparing to read scripture, then walked to the stand with rehearsed dignity. She adjusted the microphone, her voice just the right mix of tremble and control. "My father was vulnerable in the final year of his life," she began. "He was isolated, confused at times. Skyla took advantage. She moved in, kept him from the rest of the family, and manipulated him into rewriting his will." Lacey nodded softly beside her like a backup choir member. "She wasn't the one caring for him," my mother continued. "Lacey and I, especially Lacey, were there consistently. My father had always said the house, the journals, the trust, would be for Lacey. We were shocked when the document said otherwise." She turned toward the judge, hands folded. "We believe the will was tampered with." "Thank you, Ms. Hastings," the judge said. "Ms. Skyla Hastings, do you wish to respond?" I stood. Every joint in my body felt oddly distant, like I was walking underwater, but I didn't hesitate. No flare, no outrage, just the chair squeaking gently as I moved toward the stand. I took out my phone and, with the judge's permission, tapped on a voice file. A crackle. Then his voice filled the room. My grandfather's voice. "If you're listening to this, that means they've come for what isn't theirs. I made peace with that. But Skyla, you are my choice. You stayed. You asked nothing. You carried the weight no one else wanted. This house, and what I've left in it, it's for you." I let the room absorb his words before I pulled out the next piece. These are the notarized records of his mental wellness evaluation, taken 10 days before the amended will. Clear, competent, no signs of coercion or dementia. I handed the folder to Ms. Cartwright, who walked it to the judge. My mother didn't look up. I returned to my seat. The silence in the courtroom had shifted. It was no longer cold. It was watching. Then Ms. Cartwright stood and said, "Your Honor, we would like to call a witness." The bailiff opened the side door. A tall man in his 60s walked in slowly, button-down shirt, silver mustache, a slight limp. "This is Mr. Raymond Ellis," Cartwright said. "Former police officer, retired. He lived next door to Mr. Clarence Hastings for over 20 years. He raised his hand, took the oath, then settled into the witness chair. "I saw Ms. Linda Hastings visit several times in the months leading up to Clarence's passing," he said clearly. "Each time she stayed about 20 minutes. Didn't bring groceries, didn't stay long. Once I heard shouting. Clarence told me later he asked her to stop bringing up the will." My mother's jaw twitched. "And the week before the will was read," he continued, "Lacey showed up at the property alone. I asked if she needed help. She said no. Later that night she came back. Next morning she knocked on my door and said, her words, 'You didn't see anything, right?' and offered me $10,000. Gasps. The judge immediately struck her gavel. "Order in the courtroom." Lacey's face flushed red. She whispered something to her mother, who shook her head with a tight, frightened expression. Their lawyer stood, asked for a recess, but the judge waved it off. "Denied. This is a public hearing. You brought this." Ms. Cartwright didn't press further. She didn't have to. My mother finally looked at me, and I swear I saw something flicker behind her eyes. Not guilt, not regret. Defeat. She folded her arms and looked away. Lacey didn't speak. She stared at the floor as if willing it to open and swallow her. "I didn't fight to win," I said aloud, knowing the whole room could hear. "I fought so I wouldn't disappear again." The judge called for a short recess. As I walked down the hallway outside, I didn't speak to anyone, didn't respond to Ms. Cartwright or the whispers in the corridor. I just kept walking toward the exit, hands folded tight over my coat. Then someone tapped my arm. A courier, young man, polite, nodded and handed me a sealed envelope. For Ms. Hastings. There was no name, no return address, just my name in thin, mechanical lettering. I opened it slowly. Inside was one line, scrawled in ink, almost childlike. "You were never supposed to survive the cabin." I didn't turn on the radio the whole drive up. The air had that crisp early fall bite, the kind that smells like dying leaves and wet wood. The trees along the road were already turning, amber, blood red, gold, but my eyes stayed fixed ahead. I hadn't been to the cabin since the funeral, not once in all these years, but the letter changed everything. "You were never supposed to survive the cabin." Whoever sent that didn't know me very well. I've survived far worse. By the time I reached the old gravel path leading to the house, dusk had started to slip in through the trees. I parked just where I remembered Grandpa always did, beneath the bare birch that leaned like an old man with a secret. The cabin stood still. No signs of life. The porch sagged more than I remembered. The windows hadn't seen Windex in at least a decade, but the place hadn't been ransacked again, at least not yet. I pushed the door open slowly. It groaned like an old memory. The smell hit me instantly, dust, pine, and thyme, and something else, something I couldn't name. I didn't turn on any lights. Each step I took inside felt like slipping into an old skin. The wooden floor creaked beneath my boots. I let my fingers graze the wall where my height was marked in pencil. 1995, 2001. Then it stopped. In the living room, I stood still, letting the silence settle around me like a second coat. The table was still there, the one I used to crawl under when Mom and Lacey started arguing. That one time, it came back so fast I could almost hear it. I was maybe 7, huddled underneath while Lacey hissed, "He's holding up everything. If he gets sicker, we need to make choices." And Mom? She didn't stop her. She just said, "Don't say it in front of Skyla." But they said it anyway. I never forgot. I walked past the kitchen, brushing away a spider web with the sleeve of my jacket. The door to the storage room was half cracked open, as if waiting. That was Grandpa's room, his journals, his order. He never let anyone inside without him. I flicked on the flashlight on my phone. Dust danced in the beam like ghostly snow. I crouched low in front of the old dresser. I remembered it well. Top drawer always jammed, second one filled with blank cassette tapes. The third was empty. Except, tucked behind the back panel, I spotted something wedged deep, a small metal case. Rusty latch. I pried it open slowly. Inside, a stack of old Polaroids, faded, yellowing. I flipped through them fast, trees, the lake, the porch. Then I stopped cold. There she was. Lacey, dragging a dark suitcase across the cabin steps, dated 3 days before Grandpa's fall. I held the photo up to the light again. Why would she be here with luggage when he was already in the hospital? My stomach turned. I pulled myself back up, scanned the room again, and then something tugged at me, an old instinct. I walked over to the wood stove. He used to stash stuff behind it. Once hid my birthday present there for a week. The metal panel was loose. I shifted it aside. Wrapped in crinkled plastic, nearly lost in the dust, was a cracked old recorder. One of those boxy cassette ones from the 90s, the kind you had to hit twice to rewind. I sat cross-legged right there on the cold wooden floor, took out the portable charger I brought from the car. Thankfully, the adapter fit. The small red light blinked on. I hit play. The static came first. Then his voice. Raspy, low. "If I don't wake up, tell Skyla. Lacey was here. She brought something. I think I'm being drugged." I stopped the tape. My breath caught in my throat. That voice, that pause, that fear, and the way he said my name, not bitter, not angry, like he was counting on me, like he knew. I rewound it, played it again, and this time I let the tears fall. Not out of shock, but out of confirmation. I wasn't crazy for all those years thinking something didn't add up. I wasn't imagining the look on Mom's face when I'd asked about that week, or the way Lacey's hands had trembled at the funeral. I wiped my face, stood up carefully. Back in the main room, I snapped photos of everything. Tape recorder, Polaroids, the metal box. Then I uploaded them all to cloud storage. Redundancy was protection. I knew that now. On the drive back to town, I didn't rush. I needed the air. I needed time to stop shaking. I called Ms. Cartwright from the gas station parking lot. She picked up after one ring. "I think we have grounds for criminal investigation," I said. She was quiet for a moment. Then, "You're sure?" "I have a tape from 2 days before his fall. And pictures. I'll arrange everything." That night, I sent one message. To Lacey. "Dinner, tomorrow night, just us." She agreed within 5 minutes, probably thought I wanted to make peace. She always liked to believe she had the upper hand. We met at a quiet restaurant near downtown. Nothing fancy. Wood booths, soft lighting, brick walls. She walked in late, dressed to impress. Expensive coat, flawless makeup. That same smirk she always wore when she thought she'd already won. "I wasn't sure you'd actually go through with it," she said as she sat down. I smiled politely. Neither was I. We ordered drinks. She made small talk. I let her. Then I placed the recorder on the table. Her eyebrows flicked up. "What's that?" I hit play. Her face didn't change at first, not even when Grandpa's voice filled the small space between us, but by the time he whispered, "Lacey was here," she had gone pale. I didn't say much. I didn't have to. I leaned in slightly and said, You didn't just break into a house, you shattered a soul. She stood quickly, knocking her chair back. I'm leaving. I didn't stop her, but someone else did. A woman in a dark coat sitting 3 tables away stood up as Lacey rushed out, followed her through the exit. I didn't know who she was, but a second later, my phone buzzed. Blocked number. 1 line. Now it's my turn to speak. The voice from the past wasn't the last surprise, because the next one walked right into my gallery the very next day. Sunlight spilled across polished concrete as I adjusted the final spotlight for the heirs room, an exhibit stitched together from Granddad's negatives, sketches, and the cedar-scented journals that had survived every Hastings storm. Visitors would file in at 3, but for now the space belonged to me and faint jazz from the ceiling speakers. The bell over the door tinkled. I expected a courier, maybe a reporter. Instead, a tall woman in a dove-gray suit paused beneath the entry light. Her silver hair framed a face etched with calm intelligence. "Skyla Hastings?" I nodded, wiping dust from my hands. "I'm Eleanora Bell." She offered a slim envelope. "I nursed your grandfather briefly, and many years ago I was Harold Brayley's first wife." The name of Granddad's lawyer landed like a measured drumbeat. I led her to the office nook, heart rapping against my ribs. She broke the wax seal on the envelope, revealing 3 documents wrapped in archival tissue. "The top letter is from Clarence," she said. "He trusted I'd deliver it when the estate battle turned uglier than paperwork." I unfolded the pages. Granddad's looping script greeted me. "Skyla, if Linda or Lacey push beyond jealousy and into fraud, this letter confirms my fears. Someone has forged signatures before, yours and mine. Use these attachments to expose every false witness. I chose you because you listen, and because you tell the truth even when it costs you breath." Behind it lay bank ledgers highlighting withdrawals Mom had hidden, plus a notarized affidavit from a handwriting expert dated 7 years earlier. Proof the first fake will existed long before Granddad's final stroke. My vision blurred, but the tears felt different this time. Less salt, more release. Eleanora set a gentle hand on my shoulder. "He said you'd understand." Footsteps echoed in the gallery. The first patrons were arriving. I excused myself, locked the letters in the display case labeled Legacy under glass, then slipped to the back room and called Ms. Cartwright. She picked up on the second ring. "I was just about to call you. Prosecutors are filing charges. Larceny, forgery, even attempted elder abuse." "I have more," I said, voice steady. "Letters that nail the timeline. I'll send an investigator tonight." The gallery filled steadily. Students scribbling notes, retirees lingering at the old tape deck playing Granddad's river recordings. I watched from the doorway, absorbing the hum of strangers honoring a man my own family tried to erase. Near closing, my phone buzzed. Unknown number again. Voicemail only. I ignored it. Instead, I drove to Washington Park, a place Granddad loved for its quiet ponds and fearless squirrels. Evening light slanted through the sycamores. I carried a small wooden urn, the last of his ashes, nestled in a canvas tote. By the water, I opened the lid and let the pale dust drift onto the breeze. "You're home now," I whispered. A little girl feeding ducks nearby looked up. "Did you know him?" "Yes," I said, kneeling to her level. "He was kind and brave." She smiled. "Then you must be, too." I laughed, a real round sound I hadn't made in months. Back at the gallery after dark, I returned Eleanora's copies to the vault and walked the floor one final time. The only light left burning was a single spotlight over the battered cassette recorder, the one that had carried his warning, his love, his thunder. I clicked off the main switch, the room falling into velvet shadow except for that lone beam. Sometimes the quietest voice is the one that saves you.